Jerry, tell us your wish list for budget 2010.
Well, as I've always say at the time of the budget, when I was a kid and I was watching the Minister of Finance in the UK read out his budget speech over the space of 3 hours, immediately after it, the opposition have a chance to make their comments on the budget. And this chap, Dennis Healey, who is the opposition Minister of Finance, said, listening to that speech was a bit like being savaged by a dead sheep. I mean, it's not a very exciting business, and you don't expect a lot of sex and violence when it comes to budget announcements. And I think this year the Prime Minister's quite limited in what he can do, because like any other country in the world, maybe to a lesser extent than other countries, revenues are down. You know, the economy for the first half of the year was in negative economic growth. The oil price was depressed. It isn't now, but it was then, and that's a large part of Malaysia's revenues. And he's got to spend more money, or he has already proposed and is enforcing 67 billion ringgits worth of stimulus measures. So I don't think he can do a lot. And my main wish is that what he does do is credible in the views of the world, so that the ringgit doesn't get bashed down too much. You know, I think the budget deficit could well remain, you know, within, you know, between 6 and 8% of GDP, which is, it's been a deficit since the crisis of 1998. I would be worried if it went to 10 or 11%, and it got to a level at which people overseas might think that it would be difficult for Malaysia to return from to a budget surplus, or at least a balanced budget. So that's his limit, really, I think. Other wishes? Well, we hold various stocks in our portfolio, some of which have already been affected. I think unofficially there's a 1 cent per stick increase in excise duty on cigarettes. I hope he doesn't do anything to the alcohol industry, because I think we've got to the hen's teeth now. When they increase excise duties excessively in these industries, it just encourages the contraband and illicit industry to flourish, which the government gets nothing from whatsoever. The other wish is that policies are introduced to encourage private sector consumption. You know, obviously, although the world seems to have hit floor in terms of export demand and consumer spending is concerned, particularly in the US and Europe, it's not rebounding very much, so our exports are suffering. We've got to find something else to make up the GDP. The Prime Minister has talked about the plans to switch to a more service-oriented economy, and for service to be more than the current 50%, maybe 70% of GDP. It would be nice to see consumption, private domestic consumption and private investment continue or to go positive. It went marginally positive in the second quarter of 2009, but I'd like to see policies to encourage people to spend a bit more money. Our savings rate overall, if you look at the overall national net savings rate at 38 and a bit %, is very high compared to elsewhere. I think we could spend a bit more money. To spend a bit more money, people have got to feel a bit more confident in the future, and confident that they can make long-term commitments to houses and other goods that maybe require loans over the longer period. And that's what part of this budget's about, but the whole Barisan Nasional has got to make sure that people are happy. Another thing as well I've just thought of.
Okay.
Okay, run? And the other thing is, I think that Malaysia is still, and I think I might have said this to you before, Nazrul, I've said it to others, we're getting a little bit too addicted on subsidies, and we sort of fall out of sync with the rest of the world. In the middle of last year, when fuel prices were increased by 40-odd%, we were only 30 cents short of international petrol prices at the pump. Now petrol prices have gone up again. We're in danger of losing touch there, but that's a big subsidy. The Prime Minister mentioned this, I think, overnight, that there's also subsidy on various foodstuffs, subsidies on an equivalent of cash for clunkers in the auto industries, rebates. I think Malaysia needs to be less dependent upon subsidies. When they become less dependent upon subsidies, they need to earn more. When they need to earn more, then they need to move to the higher levels of perhaps the service industry and other areas, healthcare, etc., which means that Malaysia goes in the direction that the Prime Minister wants it to, which is to become less a sort of low-end manufacturing centre, but to add value and to have a larger contribution to GDP from the service sector.
Mr. Peter Lim, can you tell us your wish for budget 2010?
Basically, I have 3 wishes for the budget 2010, which is about to announce next week. First is basically, my wish is very fervent in the sense that the Malaysian public as well as businessmen are benefiting from the stimulus packages that have been announced. And it's very important here because in order for the benefits to flow down to the members of public and the business community, there must be efficient deliveries. So my wish actually is to improve, if not to really strengthen the channels for deliveries of the proposals made in the stimulus packages. And the second wish is, which is much talked about, is the GST, the Goods and Services Tax. My fervent hope here is do not introduce it now, because the Malaysian economy is not really in the firm foundation yet, because we are in the recovery phase, and when we're in the recovery phase, we need consumption to really support the economy. And GST is not really something that really will be able to, it's not pro-consumption. And my third wish, basically, as far as the capital market industry is concerned, that's where I mean, is that the government should try to improve the competitiveness of the business environment. And here, specifically, I hope the Malaysian government can consider a reduction, if not a waiver of the cost of doing business in the capital market, which is the cost of doing business via share transaction. And here, specifically, I'm requesting, if possible, the government to consider the waiver of stamp duty levied on share transaction. Or if not a waiver, then a reduction. Of course, the people involved can consult us. We'll be able to give our contribution. Because if this is done, the environment becomes more competitive. And this will be very important to attract more investors into the market, capital market, which is a very important economy, as well as the foreign investors.